Good morning. Curtis Chandler here, President of PFL, bringing you this week's North American rail energy and macro update. Starting with the markets, stocks closed higher on Friday of last week, but finished lower week over week. Dow gained 299 points, Friday closing at 46,247 points, but down 67 points week over week. In overnight trading, Dow futures are trading higher and are expected to open up 191 points from Friday of last week's close. The standout economic data was initial jobless claims, dropping by 14,000 to 218,000 people, a solid improvement showing labor market strength. In the energy space, crude oil had a strong week. WTI closed on Friday of last week at $65.72 per barrel, up $3.04 per barrel week over week. WTI futures are poised to open slightly lower from Friday of last week's close. The big story this week is grain harvest, creating massive rail demand. Grain carloads hit 23,147 for the week ending September 24th, representing the strongest grain rail performance in recent weeks. Secondary railcar auction bids reached $297 above published tariff rates, a dramatic spike as grain shippers compete aggressively for limited equipment during this peak harvest season. USDA confirmed a record 16.8 billion bushel corn harvest from the most recent acres planted, the most since 1933, with peak shipping in October-November ahead. Current capacity pressures will intensify. We are watching some major industry developments. Western Canadian natural gas hit unprecedented territory last week as AECO spot prices dropped to minus 18 per MMBTU on Thursday of last week, marking 4 consecutive days of sub-zero pricing. The collapse triggered immediate well shut-ins from major producers as production's economics completely deteriorated. See PFL's rail report for further details as to why and possible rail impact. Also in Canada, Canadian crude by rail exports reported by the Canadian Energy Regulator on Friday of last week increased to 74,031 barrels per day in July, up 11,184 barrels per day from June. The battle for Make Energy reached a decisive moment last week with Institutional Shareholder Services recommended shareholders vote in favor of Cenovus' $8.3 billion takeover, dealing a potentially fatal blow to Strathcona hostile bid just 12 days before the October 9th vote. The Trump administration stepped directly into the Great Lakes pipeline battle last week, filing a federal briefing supporting Enbridge's Line 5 operations against left-wing Michigan Governor Whitmer's shutdown attempts, arguing it violates the 1977 Transit Pipeline Treaty with Canada. And finally, in Canada, left-wing Prime Minister Mark Carney faced his biggest energy policy contradiction last week as Conservatives forced a vote demanding the elimination of the federal oil and gas emission cap. That the Liberal government party voted down, highlighting the disconnect between energy superpower rhetoric and climate change policies that industries argue that will make some ambitions impossible. The proposed $85 billion Union Pacific Norfolk Southern merger gained significant backing last week with President Trump's endorsement and union support from Smart Transportation Division. The U.S. Department of Energy announced on Wednesday of last week its intention to cancel $13 billion in funds for wind, solar, batteries, and electric vehicles. The key takeaway this week is the harvest season is creating intense rail capacity petition while energy infrastructure battles continue reshaping transportation patterns. Record rail volumes are driving premium pricing for rail equipment while regulatory uncertainty continues benefiting flexible transportation alternatives. For the latest and greatest on equipment for sale or lease, customized rail solutions, contact us here at PFL. Remember, we clean, flare, service, and store rail cars across North America. If you're attending this week's SWARS conference in Phoenix, Arizona, we will see you there. David Coe and I will be there representing PFL. Feel free to give David a call on his cell or my cell, or call the office for a meeting, and we're happy to meet with you. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week with another update on what's moving North American rail and energy markets. Please make sure you read this week's rail report and have a great, safe week.